concept. So
Hello and welcome to the Vogue Business Metaverse Atelier with Epic Games. I'm Senior Innovation Editor Megan McDowell. This experience is designed to showcase digital fashion in an entertaining and immersive context, and it is open only today. We invite you to explore the entire island using the light trail as your guide. All of the content plays continuously, so feel free to return to your favorite areas or navigate directly using the map. You can use your arrow keys to move and your mouse to look around. Let's get started. Digital fashion. What does that mean? And most importantly, how do you wear it? The concept of digital-only clothing might seem odd, but it has quickly become a new focus because it ties into so many areas of the cultural zeitgeist, including social media, gaming, sustainability, the metaverse, and yes, even NFTs. Digital clothing essentially refers to three-dimensional garments that exist only in a digital format. It can be digitally tailored on your Instagram selfies. It can be worn in your in-game character or collected as a highly valuable work of art. It can also be worn as an augmented reality filter, although that technology is still in development. Digital clothing is made using various 3D software programs. Many of these programs offer fabrics that drape and stretch exactly like their physical counterparts. And these can be shaped and fitted on digital fit models, helping designers adapt designs with just a tap. These can be created using practical necessities such as interlinings, zippers, and buttons. And this is why digital design processes are already being used to design physical clothing, because it saves resources on sampling, fitting, and shipping. Of course, digital design can also unleash creativity that wasn't previously possible, perhaps by using materials such as water or fire in place of fabrics. Now, when you think of metaverse fashion, you might picture something that is more stylized or simplified to adapt to certain environments such as Roblox, Fortnite, or Decentraland. But digital fashion can also be photorealistic and high fidelity, meaning it can be extremely detailed and lifelike. And that's the kind of clothing that we are highlighting today from a range of notable designers and brands. Now, I should warn you that intricate garments like the ones we are about to show you aren't yet easily wearable in virtual worlds like this one, primarily due to limits in computing power. But experts predict that it's only a matter of time until personalized avatars, or holograms like myself, are wearing photorealistic clothing that flutters in the wind and fools the eye. Your first stop is a conversation with artist Gary James McQueen, who shares his design process, followed by a first look at his latest project. The next series of environments displays a curated selection of three-dimensional garments, narrated by the designers themselves. You'll emerge into a gallery before landing on the beach. And one final tip, in the metaverse, you can fly. We'll be sure to give you a cue. So with that, let's get started. Hi, Gary. Welcome to our Metaverse Atelier.
hi, Megan.
So everyone has such a unique path toward digital fashion. You trained in graphic design before working as a textile designer with your uncle, Lee Alexander McQueen. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to digital fashion.
Well, I started quite early in the digital space, studying graphic design. And after graduating from that, I went into publishing. I did that for 3 years, and that's where I learned a whole process involved in creating high quality digital results. And then from there, my uncle, Alexander McQueen, gave me a call personally and said there was a position open at men's textile department, men's ready-to-wear. And because Alexander McQueen was so digital focused when it came to their textile design and that process, I seemed to fit into what he needed at the time. So that was kind of that sort of progression from being a graphic designer, always very artistic, and then falling into the fashion industry, if you like.
So interesting. So it sounds like you think of yourself more as an artist than a designer, a traditional designer. So what about digital clothing is really interesting to you?
I think what the digital space allows me to do is create immersive experiences and stories, which is something that I've always loved to do from a young age. You know, from the age of 5 years old, where my uncle Alexander McQueen already had an influence on me by, you know, watching the horror films with me, and that really sort of spiked my imagination from a young age and my love of storytelling. And it wasn't until later on in life when he gave me that opportunity to work at Alexander McQueen where I saw how he took clothing and incorporated it into this much bigger thing than just what the clothes were about. It was about storytelling, it was about theatre, and that's something that resonated with myself.
I love that. That sounds so interesting. So I know this is probably a hard question to answer, but are there any programs that you tend to use in your process?
Yeah, there's, you know, primarily there's Photoshop, which I use for the sketching phase. From there, I've evolved into the 3D space a little more with ZBrush, which I also use for both the sketching phase, so I can create 3D sketches from my rough drawings. And then there's Marvelous Designer as well, where the pattern pieces are created for the 3D clothes. And then there's Keyshot as well, which I use for rendering. So that gives me an idea of what the fabric's looking like in more of a 3D lit environment, if you like, and how the materials are reacting to that lighting. And then there's the new edition of Unreal Engine, which is the Metaverse, if you like, where, you know, the shows take place.
Absolutely. That sounds so interesting, and that really gets us insight into your design process. I want to ask, I know you also have, in your recent project, you have some embroidery. So tell us what that's like, because obviously you're not sewing in a traditional format. So what's that about?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, the artwork for an embroidery would be created with a pencil to paper and then using different coloured pencils to indicate direction of weave. The way that I like to produce this in the digital space is going back to ZBrush, which is the 3D software that I sculpt in. On this new collection, you can see there's an embroidered panel on the front of the waistcoat, and this was created by myself, sculpted in ZBrush. And from there, I render that out using Keyshot, which is the rendering software that I use. And I can produce both the color information and also the height information of that sculpted artwork, and then that translates as an embroidery digitally on the clothes.
Yeah, I really love how these technologies can truly enable the previously impossible. Last year, for example, you hosted a digital fashion show called Guiding Light that allowed audiences to purchase digital garments from the runway. And you actually shared some of these pieces from that project with our visitors to wear here. Can you just briefly tell us a little bit about this project?
Yeah, I mean, like with a lot of my art pieces, everything's based around a feeling and a story that I'm trying to tell. And Guiding Light was no different. You know, this was loosely based upon the Tower of Babel and ancient civilizations, advanced civilizations. So the process of that was fairly more complicated than what I'm currently working on, which still has its challenges. It's not you know, easy, but because it's a static image, there's just other problems that you need to solve when it comes to animated and choreographed 3D assets. So the collection itself was composed of 20 looks, and that was split equally between men's and women's wear. And then again, on top of that, it was both lifestyle and sportswear, but also couture pieces as well. So I don't make anything easy for myself. And the choreography was quite unique as well, in the sense that it wasn't your standard catwalk runway. It was based around a tower where all the models and all the looks came out of, and had to spiral around that tower and onto the platform at the bottom, which was quite an accomplishment as well. And for that, we had to capture unique mocap data of the movement of the models. So, and again, you know, because this is animated content, it has to be optimized, which means the initial high resolution details that you get on the clothing has to be downgraded. So it started at something like 2 million polys per look, and then that was downgraded to about 50,000 polys, which is quite a bit. But we managed to retain enough detail within that using PBR textures, so it still translated pretty well.
So neat. Well, quickly, the final question before we actually take a look at your latest project. Do you intend to produce your digital fashion physically, perhaps as a digital twin, or do you see your digital fashion living exclusively in the virtual realm?
Well, the way that I design my pieces is based more around what's translatable physically in the physical fashion industry. There's a lot of examples out there in the digital world where, you know, the clothing's on fire. But, you know, saying that, with Guiding Light, there were a few pieces within that that looked like they're made out of metal, you know. But that could be translated as silk, if you like, as well, if I wanted to go down that route of physical production. But the way that I see my pieces working is part of a wider art experience and exhibition where the clothing, it becomes wearable art, and, you know, they're really one-of-a-kind pieces as part of that experience.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing this context about your work. To see the finished product and to learn more about Gary's process and inspiration behind his recent project, continue onward. Until then, thank you, Gary. We'll see you at the beach. Hi, Gary. Welcome to our Metaverse Atelier.
What I was trying to create was a reenactment of a diorama concept. So for me, it was using the tools of Unreal Engine and all the possibilities of that 3D environment, but taming it back for traditional photo shoot. So what we was taking that environment and then was flattening that and creating a 2D rendered image from that 3D environment as a backdrop. And then we had partly a 3D set that the models will be standing on with the looks. What I like to do is combine a lot of different reference points. For example, with this story, it was taking like Renaissance, the story of Icarus, flat earth theory, and combining all these things to create a unique story. That's what I like to do. So the character that I'm portraying in this one is called Nimrod, and it's loosely based on a fallen angel. And the features of this look are quite bird-like, you know, to resemble that kind of angelic character. So what we did was we took the features of 4 different prominent male models and we created an E-fit from that. So we took the eyes from one model, the mouth from another model, the nose and the face shape from the other 2 models. And we combined these to create a unique meta-human, if you like. And then this was then translated through digital sculpting as the avatar that will be wearing this look. Other aspects of this look are the uniquely sculpted boots that are created, which is almost like a lion's foot or a griffin's foot, which is, again, it's kind of inspired by this Renaissance era, the idea of the character being this kind of fallen angel. And it's also combined with an element of fashion as well. So it's quite glam rock as well in its appearance. So these little features, these little aspects and details are what I like to combine, and which really sort of strengthens the personality of the look. Alongside that, I incorporated these platelet leggings, which are very bird-like as well. So it looks like there's metal platelets that look like scales that degrades from a black into gold plate towards the bottom. And the tailcoat, again, this is just reinforcing the idea of, bird-like features. So it's got this kind of tail feather almost, which is represented with the tailcoat aspect. What I've included on top of that is satin stitch embroidery, just to bring out the colour palette that I've got in mind for the overall aesthetic of this piece. At the top, I've styled this up with a leather harness, and the idea was to attach an asymmetrical wing on one side of this harness, which again will reflect the colours of the palette that I've got in mind for this overall look. And to add a little bit of volume on top of this, I've added a bell sleeve shirt as well, just because in my mind as an artist, and in terms of proportion, that balances everything out at the bottom, What I was trying to create was a reenactment of a diorama concept.
So I've always been extremely obsessed with identity and with what fashion can mean by dressing yourself differently every single day, by exploring who you are as a person, and by really seeing who you could become if you wear different kind of clothes every day. And that led me to go to fashion school, where I studied the traditional routes. I did everything the way that it's supposed to be, but I quickly realized that, it was very old fashioned, pun intended, and it was very physical in a way. And growing up in the digital reality, I'm a gamer kid. I used to game. I used to be in a lot of virtual worlds, and I understood this reality. And I felt like in the traditional fashion system, there was not much room for this digital reality. And during my studies, I discovered 3D modeling software with which you could create digital garments. And when I saw that, how accurately it fitted across the body, how you could really see the seams and the details and the emotion in the clothing, that's when I realized, do we even still need to produce physical garments? Could we run a fashion company or a fashion label without ever having to produce a single garment again? And that set us out on a path where in 2018, we started The Fabricant, which is a digital-only fashion house. And yeah, it created a new set standard for what fashion could mean in the digital age. And that came to a moment in time where we sold our first digital garment on the blockchain. And this was in 2019, May 2019. It was at an Ethereum conference where we sold this dress. It's called the Iridescence dress. And I'll give you a second to think about what the price would be of this garment. It was $9,500 for a dress that doesn't exist. So it doesn't exist, you can say whatever you want, but it does exist because it's on the blockchain. So it was a new paradigm, and it shocked the whole fashion industry that people would actually pay money for something that was so ephemeral. But yet it's a new reality, and we see that more day to day, every day now. So it's more normal. And the design is inspired by crypto kitties. There's crypto kitties hidden inside of the garment. The print is like smudged crypto kitties, which is the first NFT project that existed. And the dress is made of this glass material that is very transparent and feels almost plastic bag-ish, which was a bit of the inspiration behind it. And you really can't create this in real life. There was lights hidden inside of the garment as well, but we rendered it so realistically that a lot of people thought it was real. And that's where we like to be, between this borderline of real and fake. So as The Fabricant, what we set out to do is set an example of how you can be a brand in the digital space, to lay the blueprint so that others in our footsteps can follow, and we can create the tools and the things that people can use to actually become a digital fashion brand themselves. So I've always been extremely obsessed with identity and with what fashion can mean by dressing yourself differently every single day.
Lacello, the co-founder and creative director of Ouroboros.
Hi, and I'm Elisa, also the co-founder and the creative director of Ouroboros, the science tech fashion house creating for both the physical and the digital worlds. We've both came together merging our skill sets and interests from creative direction, image making, and avant-garde design to create this very special brand and the first collection by Mimicry.
By Mimicry Collection was the first collection in history that a digital collection was showcased at any major international fashion week, which we did in our native town of London. Named by Mimicry, it's inspired and derived from the cyclical forces of nature, technology, and the influences of screenwriters, directors from science fiction to anime, such as Alex Garland to Hayao Miyazaki. Free of all material constraints and waste, and all body shapes and sizes, Biomimicry is fully inclusive and invites all to immerse themselves within our utopian world of Ouroboros.
Inspired by the concept by Mimicry, which in case you're not familiar with, is a system centered around imitating nature's structures in design. By that, we are celebrating the love for nature tech. The Atokarina look that you see right there on the avatar consists of two main pieces, the Mandrake bodysuit and the Atokarina coat. The Mandrake suit is inspired by a mythological plant with the same name, which has human features. It's an idea of merging the human and plant DNA and emphasizing the similarities between them. We were also very influenced by the book Le Sexe des Fleurs by Bernard Werber, in which he imagines a surreal future where humans reproduce like flowers. His books are so ecologically conscious and carry these utopian possible futures that we love to explore in our work.
On top of the Mandrake bodysuit, you're seeing the Atokarina coat. It was created by looking at blockbuster films such as Avatar, created by James Cameron. These moving elements on the coat were inspired by the little seedlings that were part of the mother tree in the film. So when you're wearing these on your avatar or through your physical self, in your images through AR, they come around you, embrace you, and grace you with their presence, so to speak. They are a symbol of being part of a larger natural phenomenon. This look has been now worn by the likes of Marilyn Monroe and Grimes.
Hi everyone, I'm based in Washington, D.C. I started Hanifa in 2012, and the brand really took off in 2020 when we launched our first virtual show via Instagram Live. And it was pretty much on since then. This collection that I am talking about today in this piece is from my Pink Label Congo collection that was inspired by Congo and where my family is from. And it was really important for me to create a collection that was based on my culture and from my personal creative lens. And I believe this was the first time I was able to show everyone that African prints can be done in a totally different way, in a different perspective. When it comes to the 3D virtual digital space, I was really inspired by a Star Wars film that I saw, Last Jedi, that which really led me to researching and studying like the CGI and how the movie and film industry is able to create these virtual beings and objects and things and incorporating those items into their production. So I spent a lot of time studying and really learning and figuring out how I can incorporate this into my work so that I can also be able to express myself and my creativity with my collections and pieces. It came at a perfect time because the world was shutting down and we weren't doing any in-person events, and we had to present and show a collection. So this piece right here is the My Maxi. This was actually our very first print that we ever created at Hanifa, and it is the Congo River, which is one of the biggest rivers in the world. And again, I really wanted to just showcase a different perspective from African prints. I think we typically see what we usually see, but I really wanted to make sure that I was presenting this in a way where I think a lot of people actually didn't know I was African for a long time. But when I started my brand, I didn't want to be pigeonholed as an African designer. I wanted to be recognized as a designer. And I felt like this was the perfect time to do so. And I just really love this print because it also, to me, it felt like it was freeing and freedom of expression, which is why we use the fabric that we used for this dress, which was a silk chiffon. And I thought it meshed really well with the print. And in this photo here, we created basically an editorial scene with our 3D model and our 3D dress. Hi, everyone. I'm based in Washington, D.C. I started Hanifa in 2012. And the brand really took